Yeah, I think we're just about ready to go for it.
Okay, go for it. Okay, so Parsa, again, let's make sure we're recording. And then let's make sure Dr. Vardi is all set up on a screen, ready to go for once we finish our introduction to the series. Can everyone hear me? I want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm good.
Excellent. Welcome everyone to the 2024 Turing Award Winner Speaker Series at the Georgia Institute of Technology College of Computing, sponsored by AI2 Incubator. During the course of the semester, 5 Turing Award winners and many other famous computer scientists will be speaking and giving presentations to 1,500 plus RSVP'd students and faculty from the top computer science universities in the world. Thank you very much to our esteemed speaker series advisors, Dr. Goedel, and Dr. Biane, for helping to make this initiative a reality. I'm so grateful for your advice and guidance as we planned this tremendous speaker series. Thank you as well to our favorite LinkedIn influencer and sponsor, Ashiara, for her assistance in helping market the series to her 480,000 plus LinkedIn followers. We simply could not have achieved our stellar attendance numbers without you. And if you guys aren't following her, you're missing out. I'm extremely excited to announce our first guest speaker, the insanely accomplished computer scientist and the Karen Ostrom George Distinguished Service Professor in Computational Engineering at Rice University, Dr. Moshe Vardi. His interests focus on applications of logic to computer science, including database theory, finite model theory, knowledge of multi-agent systems, computer-aided verification and reasoning, and teaching logic across the curriculum. He is an expert in model checking, constraint satisfaction, and database theory, common knowledge logic, and theoretical computer science. Dr. Vardi has also authored or co-authored over 750 technical papers. He has won many of the most prestigious computer science awards, and here are just a few. ACM Fellow, Goedel Prize, Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence Fellow, Paris Kanellakis Award, Harry H. Good Memorial Award, member of the National Academy of Sciences, and the Donald Knuth Prize. Now presenting to us how to be an ethical technologist. Without further ado, I give you Dr. Moshe Vardi, everyone.
Thank you very much for this very, very kind introduction. Please mute so we lose the echo. So today I'd like to talk to you about ethics, not about the technology itself, but the ethical aspect of the technology. And I want to qualify what kind of ethics I'm talking about, because about a bit over a year ago, we had a panel at Rice University, ethical decision, the engineer's responsibility. And it was staffed mostly by people from the industry, including our dean. And the main summary of ethics was do not cheat, lie, or steal. At the end of the panel, I asked, Exxon was aware of climate change as early as 1977, 11 years before it became public issue. In fact, Exxon not only did not disclose it, but they have campaigned against human cause, the theory of human cause, theory and the reality of human cause climate change. And the panelist from Exxon says, I cannot comment on that. So yes, of course, you should not cheat, lie, or steal. But when I talk about ethics today, it will be on a much deeper level. And for this, I want to go back and reflect on the past decade or so in computing. So in 2012, it was the Turing centenary. Alan Turing was born in 1912. So ACM marked his centenary, and there was an event in San Francisco honoring him. And if you go back and look at the program, it's available online, you see it's a celebration of computing. Look at us, we are so successful. 5 years later, the Turing Award was 50 years old. Again, a celebration of computing. Look at us, we are ascendant. But about a year and a half ago, ACM celebrated its 75th birthday. And now the tone was a bit more sober and somber. The panelists will imagine what might be next for technology and society in years to come. In fact, if you look at the program, you see it was mostly focused not so much on technology, but more on society. And a fairly distinguished participant commented on Facebook, I found the whole thing a little depressing. Why can't we just celebrate the technology for its ascendancy? But you cannot separate computing from what's happening in society overall. This event on June 10th of 2022 took place one day after Congress started its hearing about the January 6, 2021 insurrection, where we learn about the plot to subvert the lawful transfer of power in the United States. And 2 weeks earlier, we had the Uvalde massacre, where a young gunman killed 19 children and 2 teachers. Very, very tragic event. But I'm mentioning these events because what these events do, they demonstrate the depolarization today in American society. Just in the summer of 2022, after the hearing was started, among Democrats, this New York Times poll, among Democrats, 92% think that Trump threatened U.S. democracy. But 76% of Republicans think he was just exercising his right to contest the elections. After following the Uvalde massacre, NPR survey about banning assault-type weapons, among Democratic gun owners, 84% support such a ban. Among Republican gun owners, 75% oppose such a gun. And when you have such depolarization, it leads to political paralysis because compromise is become a dirty word, and democracy itself is in danger. And people are already, this was a serious article in New York Review of Books titled "The Disunited States," Disunited States, where Simon and Stevenson seriously considered the possibility the United States will break apart into red and blue confederacies. And if you don't take it seriously, all you have to do is come to Texas, where in June of 2022, the Republican Party added a plank to its platform at its national convention, asking for a voter referendum, whether or not the state of Texas should reassert its status as independent nation. Just a little history before Texas, after Texas seceded from the United States of Mexico, it was independent republic for 9 years before joining the United States of America. And so people are now talking, should Texas reassert its status as independent nation? And just very, very recently, Time Magazine, the issue for January 2024, came up with a list, the top 10 global risks for 2024. And number 1, United States versus itself. While America's military and economy remain exceptionally strong, they write, the US political system is more dysfunctional than any other advanced industrial democracy. In 2024, the problem will get much worse. We're heading into presidential election, and I'm scared witless about what's going to happen. So what happened? What happened to the United States of America? So I'll give you very quickly a theory that spans the last 40 years. We'll go back to 1981. And 3 pivotal events happened in 1981. Number 1, a young postdoc named Moshe Vardi arrived at Stanford University. That's not so pivotal, but it was pivotal for me at least. But more significantly, about less than a month before that, IBM introduced the IBM Personal Computer Model 5150, which nobody remembers, but it was known as the IBM PC. That happened in August 12, 1981. Early in the year, Ronald Reagan was inaugurated as US president. So let's look at the consequence of these 2 pivotal events, the PC and Ronald Reagan. The PC was a smashing business success. By January, just about a year later, by January of 1983, Time Magazine, instead of putting the person of the year, okay, this year, for example, it was Taylor Swift, but it put the PC, the machine of the year. The computer moves in. They show you the computer on a desk, and a man is looking rather glumly, it seems to me, at that computer. And that the IBM PC launched a tsunami of technology. By the mid-80s, every knowledge worker, of course, had a computer on their desk. It was a given. But the late 80s, every knowledge worker took a computer home. And in 1981, the web was introduced. 1995, the internet went commercial. Google was launched in 1998. Facebook launched in 2004. The iPhone was introduced in 2007. And today, each one of us is carrying a computer in our pocket that, by the standards of the 2000 even 20 years ago, it was a supercomputer. But we cannot ignore what happened to the country as a whole. Ronald Reagan launched a tsunami of neoliberalism. What is neoliberalism? It's an extreme free market capitalism. It's economic liberalization, reduction in government spending, it's called austerity, privatization, deregulation, monetarism, tax reduction, globalization, free trade. Market know best. This is the basic paradigm. And by 2006, Warren Buffett, not exactly a bleeding heart liberal, said there is a class warfare, all right, but it is my class, the rich class, that is making war, and we are winning. So what is Warren Buffett talking about, the class war? So for this, you have to see what happened roughly from 1981. So this takes a global look at the economy, look at four important indicators: productivity, GDP, employment, and personal income, median household income. And you can see from the early 50s till about for the next 30 years until roughly 1983, these four numbers go together. So much so that economists used to believe that it's an economic law. So if you just take care of productivity, everything else will be taken care of. GDP will grow, income will grow, jobs will be created. But what we're seeing, what started roughly around 1980, 1981, is that GDP grew, productivity grew, GDP grew, but fewer jobs were created and income has stagnated. And today we have inequality has grown tremendously. And this to me is, I can sum it in this one chart. And this one chart look at the top 1% of income earner and the bottom 50% of income earners. And you can see that about 60 years ago, the top 1% earn about 12% of the income, and the bottom 50% earn about 20% of the income. But over the next 50 plus years, you see a reversal. Today, the bottom 50% only earn about 12% of the income, and the top 1% earn about 20% of the income. So we have growing economic polarization in this country. But this economic polarization was aggravated, was so severe that David Brooks, who is considered to be the conservative columnist of the New York Times, in 2022, the New York Times asked all of its columnists to write something they were wrong about. And David Brooks wrote, I was wrong about capitalism. And he wrote, the most educated Americans were amassing more and more wealth, dominated the best living areas, pouring advantages into their kids. A highly unequal caste system was forming. Caste system. Shocking to read about caste system in the United States. But economic polarization was also accompanied by cognitive polarization. And what do I mean by that? So let's go back even to the Reagan presidency. Until 1987, there was something called the fairness doctrine. So most TV stations, most TV channels were broadcast channels. So they had to license the spectrum from the government. And there was a condition. And the condition was that they have to represent all issues in a fair and balanced way. But so if you watch ABC, CBS, NBC, you watch essentially the same news. It just was a question of which anchorman you like best. But by 1987, we had plenty of cable channels. And the FCC said, well, we have cable channels, so you can get whatever point of view you like. And it abolished the fairness doctrine. So now, you know, you can watch Fox News and you can watch, let's say, MSNBC, and you'll see different realities. You'll be living in different realities. And people don't tend to flip channel to get all the perspective. People who watch Fox News will not go watch MSNBC. And people who watch MSNBC will not watch Fox News. So we created cognitive filter bubble. People live in their own bubble of reality. That this was aggravated by the internet. Let's see how. So when I arrived at Stanford in 81, there was already social media. There was something called the Well, which was a dial-up bulletin boards. There was something called Usenet, which was a Unix to Unix network. Again, a early social media. But the culture at the time that was reverberating in the Bay Area was still the culture of what's called the 60s, the counterculture. And the hippies, if you remember some history. And that counterculture was very much anti-establishment. Partly it came, there was a resistance to the Vietnam War. So the establishment was suspect. And out of this counterculture came the mantra, information wants to be free, which you still hear today. Of course, information doesn't want anything, but that became the dogma. So when Tim Berners-Lee introduced the World Wide Web in the late 80s, his frame of mind was unfettered public sharing of information. And in the early days, it was exhilarating information that before you had to dig very hard. I remember doing literature search in the 80s by spending days in the library. Suddenly, you just go and you do search. Well, actually, there was no search yet. How do you find information on the web? If you have a link, you go there. But otherwise, how do you find stuff on the internet? Very quickly, we realized there's so much stuff, and we can't find it. The first solution was directory. Libraries have catalog. Let's have a catalog for the internet. And that's what Yahoo tried to do. That was the business model of Yahoo. Except the internet was going so fast, the web was going so fast, it didn't scale. And the next step was they said, no, we need search engine. The early ones were not very good. But then Google came up with a very good search engine. And today, we don't search on the web, we Google on the web. But Google had a challenge. How do you monetize free information? If it's free, how do you make money? So they had a brilliant idea. You know, TV, or at least broadcast TV was free. What was the business model? Advertising. Newspapers are or used to be very cheap. What was the business model? Advertising. So that's what they said, let's do advertising. But they quickly discovered that online advertising is not as effective as TV or newspaper advertising. On newspaper, you have, if you really want to be effective, you have large real estate, big banners. People try it on the internet, they hated it, user hated it. TV, you have captive audience. How many times can you go to the bathroom during 1 hour show? So how do we have effective advertising on the web? And the answer was micro-targeted advertising. You match the ad to individual preferences. Each person will see different advertisement. How do we do that? For this requires personal data. So machine learning has been used from the early age of the commercial internet. Google started this target advertising to users based on personal data. And this is the source of what we call today surveillance capitalism. They have to harvest personal data so they can tailor the advertisement to the individual users. That means that what you see on the internet is not what's on the internet. It was Google wants you to see. Again, we got filter bubbles. And Facebook came and made it even more because they had another goal. The goal was maximize user engagement. They want you to spend as much time as possible on Facebook. And that requires nano-targeting, not just micro-targeting. So every click, everything you see on the internet is being tracked. Things that you do off the internet are being tracked. And the goal is keep you there on the app. And this has become a addiction by design. And people have looked at it. We all crave a social approval. And so people crave this approval on social media. And it's very similar to people have studied this. And they show the same thing that when you go to Vegas slot machines, they give you small wins just to keep you hooked. This is what social media is doing to us. And when I look today at the scene of what's happening, for example, we got out of this, we got the youth mental health crisis. You know, we have suicide rate for ages 10 to 14 has tripled between 2007 and 2017. And I think there are no other explanation other than computing. And I feel like Ender's from Ender's Game. So this is a book that was published in the mid-80s. And spoiler alert, I'll tell you the basic story. Ender is a teenage boy. He and his friends they think they are playing video games, but actually fighting a real war. And when they win the game, they actually have destroyed the civilization. We thought we were the rebel alliance. Now computing is not the rebel. We're not the rebels anymore. We are the empire. And we have to deal with the responsibility that what does it mean for us now? That we have created this world. So now we should be ethical. What does it mean to be ethical? Not just to not cheat, lie, or steal. ASM Code of Ethics starts with the following sentence. Computing professionals' actions change the world. To act responsibly, they should reflect the wider impact of their work, consistently supporting the public good. So do you want to be an ethical technologist? Very simple. Well, not so simple, but the principle is clear. Consistently support the public good. And it was put very nicely to this by, I did it in a class at Rice. I'll mention this class in a minute. We asked students whether they take a job at Facebook. And some say yes, some say no. One of the students said, no, explain. I'm going to get a bachelor in computer science from Rice University. I expect to be in high demand. Why should I take jobs in a company that's ethically questionable? I'll have many job offers. Well, I think today will be tighter job market today, but still the principle is people don't have to go to Facebook. They can make better, more ethical choices. They can vote with their feet, so to speak. And when I talk the public good, I start talking the public good a couple of years ago, and people some people said, well, you must be a Marxist-Leninist if you're talking the public good. So I want to remind you, talking public good is baked into the DNA of this country. This is the first paragraph of the US Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide a common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessing of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. So the purpose of the Constitution is the public good. The rest of the Constitution is the mechanism by which we collectively, how do we agree on the public good? There are multiplicity of opinions, plurality of opinions. How do we agree? The answer is the Constitution gives us a map. How do we reach agreement on what is the public good? But the purpose of the Constitution is stated in the first paragraph, the public good. So let's get back to student. I would argue if we as educators, if the students that leave our degree programs, if we have not talked to them about social responsibility, then we are not being socially responsible. It's our responsibility as educator to talk to them about their obligation to support the public good. They will then make their own ethical decision. But this must be part of the CS curriculum. And I encourage you to take a look at the paper I wrote with a colleague, Rodrigo Ferreira. It's called Deep Tech Ethics. It was a paper in SIGSI's Computer Science Education Conference in 2021, where we describe how we teach ethics to computer science students at Rice University. And we started teaching ethics here in 2018. And it took a while for everybody in the department to agree this is so important. We end up hiring Rodrigo just to teach ethics. The department hired from its own budget just to hear someone to teach ethics. And in the spring of 2023, the department voted to make it a required course. It used to be an elective, now it's a required course at Rice University for computer science majors. One way, I have a proposal, and the proposal is to what I call the Lovelacian oath. You should be familiar with the Hippocratic oath, the doctor's take. And Ada Lovelace is as far as I know, the first computing professional, so to speak, that did talk about the public good in a letter to Charles Babbage. Charles Babbage was an entrepreneur. He wanted to make money. And she wrote to him, she says, okay, it's fine with me if you want to make money. But she wrote, I wish to add my might towards expanding, interpreting the Almighty and his laws and works for the most effective use of mankind. So it's a bit 19th century English, but essentially she's saying this technology should be for the public good. So what is my proposed oath? Just take the first sentence of the ACM Code of Ethics. I solemnly pledge always to reflect upon the wider impact of my work, consistently supporting the public good. Let's try to close with some reflection on technology and humanity. Edward O. Wilson, a noted biologist, died just a couple of years ago, and he wrote, the true problem of humanity is the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and the technology of gods. I'll paraphrase it in even a starker way. Today's technology is taking advantage of our Paleolithic emotions and medieval institutions. So we need to rethink how we do technology. And there is a BMW used to have the slogan, the ultimate driving machine. Now, but they're threatened by autonomous vehicles. So they changed their slogan to don't be driven by technology, drive it. I think this is a good slogan for our society. Don't be driven by technology, drive it. And a few years ago, together with colleagues, several colleagues, we published the so-called Vienna Manifesto on Digital Humanism. Here is a key paragraph. We must shape technology in accordance with human values and needs, instead of allowing technology to shape humans. Our task is not only to rein in the downside of information communication technologies, but to encourage human-centered innovation. And you can find it on the web. And there is now also Digital Humanism Initiative. If you're interested, just search for it. There are many activities you might be interested in. And I'll finish with a Talmudic paragraph about ethics. Talmud is a classical piece of Jewish religious literature going back to roughly the 4th century AD. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You're not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Thank you very much.
Yasher Koach, Dr. Vardi.
Thank you. Toda rabba.
Now let's take it into Q&A mode. I encourage the audience to raise your virtual hand or post your comments in the chat, and we will do our best to answer your pertinent questions.
To start it off, we have a couple questions inside of the chat that I can start reading off as well.
Thank you.
So, Katie Snyder asks,
mute, Zack, there is an echo.
Katie Snyder asks, how manage different cultures and countries' definitions of the public good?
So we do know the different countries have, they interpret even ethics differently. There is a famous, for example, there is a famous trolley experiment. And there the question is, you have the trolley, you have two rails, one with one person, one with 5 people, and will you switch? Most people say, yes, I will switch. But then there is another variant of it. Will you push? Will you push a heavy man to stop the trolley? So again, it's 1 life versus 5 life, but now you're more active, you're pushing. And now it varies. And we see variation among countries, that even our notion of ethics is culture dependent. And of course, our notion of the public good is culture dependent. I mean, there are countries where 2019, just before the pandemic, I visited Beijing. and I see many people walking with face masks. So I asked one of the locals, why are they wearing face masks? And the answer was, they have a cold. They don't want to pass it to other people. So they're putting masks to protect other people from their own viruses. And think what kind of a fight we had in this country over COVID masks. So yes, there is a difference between different countries. Part of what will happen with technology, it has international dimensions, and people are now talking about international agreement and regulations. And this is a topic of discussion now at the UN level. And just like many other things, I mean, we have difficulty even in this country to agree what is the public good. Surely we're going to a difference between different countries. We'll have to seek for common ground.
Amazing. We also have another question here that's a bit related. We now have two camps with diametrically opposed views of the public good. One side is actively trying to avoid teaching anything about the other views. I guess it's more commentary. Let's see. Beyond this, we have...
No, my answer is that this polarization is right now really threatening democracy. I mean, I started talking about this polarization, and I think we need to start a serious conversation about depolarization. So what should we do as technologists? The technology that we have done have increased, have aggravated the polarization. It's not the only reason, but it's aggravated it. Let's start think of, we have lots of people here. Start to think of new products, new technologies that will depolarize instead of polarize society. We all need to start thinking about it. Right now, this country feels in a crisis.
Christopher Yang asks, is it possible for the big corporate to be ethical and go green? So far, what they're doing is buying carbon credit to offset emissions.
I think the issues of the combination between our economy and our politics is very challenging. So, we have, I said, for the last 40 years, we believe in markets. And the ideology has been the markets is a way to, I talked about the problem of we have plurality of opinions. Okay, here we have about 100 people attending this talk, and they will have at least 100 opinions, I suspect. So this is a challenge for societies. This is why the Constitution gives us all these elaborate mechanisms, 3 branches of government and equal branches and a whole bunch of things to try to get to some societal agreement on issues. And it's not very well working right now. So some people say, well, the market is the solution. Why is that? The market will reach an equilibrium. And that equilibrium must be the true value of things. So people one reason people really believe in market, because it seems to offer a solution against the problem, plurality of opinions. It turns out you cannot accept the plurality of opinions. Take, for example, go back to market. Right now, we understand that our current economic system, climate is an externality. That is to say, we did not take, and we still are fighting whether emitting carbon is a pollution. Can the EPA regulate carbon emission? The Supreme Court said no. And so, if we want to take carbon emission and say it cannot be an externality, we must bring it into the market. We have to figure out how to do it. And that requires we reach agreement on how to do that. So the idea that you can just let the market do things and that's the solution to our problem is a myth. Okay, we have to decide that there's no way around that. We as a society needs to talk to each other and reach agreement about certain, not about everything, but about the big things we have to reach agreement on. I didn't promise you a rose garden. It's not going to be easy. I mean, to quote John F. Kennedy in a speech he gave at Rice, to paraphrase John F. Kennedy's speech he gave at Rice 61 years ago in 1963, we choose to be ethical not because it is easy, but because it is hard.
And then we have a related follow-up question from Galit Daphne asking, what could Google or other technology and media companies do to minimize these polarized bubbles of curated thinking? Could this be a technical solution delivered via a technology or a corporate/industry mindset shift?
So right now we have, I mean, take Google is an interesting example. So two young people, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, started Google in the late 90s, and they had a motto, a very famous motto: "Do not be evil." So I believe that that they were sincere when they wrote it. What did they mean when they said "do not be evil"? They looked at other companies. They look at Exxon was a good example, and it says we do not want to become like Exxon. They look at Exxon as a example of a company that does not serve the public good, and they say no, we don't want to go that way. And then they did go that way. Why? Because the answer is right now the market pushes them to go that way. You know, we have a market, and companies are measured ultimately by how much profit they make, and it's profit maximization. I'll tell you something. I think a bit of irony. There's something called, now people talk about super intelligence. Everybody is now, the two scariest word in English language has been called the word artificial intelligence. Everybody's scared of AI now. And there was something called a book written about a decade plus ago by Nick Bostrom, a British philosopher, called Superintelligence. And one example he gave for the danger of superintelligence is he called it the paperclip maximizer. You build some artificial agent, super intelligent, and you tell it to make paperclips. So the agent says, okay, I should make as many paperclips as possible. And because it's super intelligence, it figures out how to make the whole solar system into a paperclip factory. Of course, extinguishing life as we know it. And so he said, this is the danger of super intelligent. But the answer is we have super intelligent agents. They're called the mega corporation. They are super intelligent because they bring together, they concentrate the talent of many people, working together towards a common goal. And they are maximizers. They're not maximizing paperclip, but maximizing profits. So in our current system, the only way, you know, depending on industry voluntarily giving up profit maximization, I mean, it's just not going to happen. There are too many pressure for companies to maximize. It's we as a society have to say, and I'm quoting, I think, Ginny Romti, who was IBM, past IBM CEO, who said, every corporation gets a license from society to operate. A corporation is a government-sanctioned entity. Okay, the whole concept of the limited liability corporation is created by law. If you want to create a corporation, you have to go and register with the state. You have to take legal steps to do it. You get license from society to start a corporation. And so she said, so society has the right to demand certain things from corporations. But of course, this is a huge debate. There are people who believe in free market. Corporations do whatever they want. This is going to be an ongoing debate. Can corporation come up with products that will be, again, will serve the public good? Yeah? We'll have to see whether corporations are willing to promote the public good.
Thank you. We have a couple more questions to go through here, and then afterwards we'll probably open it up to commentary for folks. Minak from Nokia Bell Labs asks, I would love to hear some thoughts on the ethics of training deep learning models on copyrighted data with regards to the New York Times lawsuit.
So I think that the answer is it's just patently, and what they have done is patently unethical. And in fact, Sam Altman just said, response to that, well, we couldn't make money if we didn't train if we didn't use everything we can find on the internet to train our large models. We can make money, so we did it because that's the only way for us to make money. So I'm not a copyright lawyer, but to me it seems like an egregious. I mean, I just look at it. You know, you take copyright material and you use it to build commercial products. So we have a concept of fair use. That is to say, it's okay for me to quote Axel. He read a paper and I want to do it. I can put a paragraph and I give him credit. Okay, and important to give him credit, not to everybody. Remember, give credit when you take a paragraph. But suppose instead of putting a paragraph, I want to put 3 pages and still give credit. People say no, this is beyond fair use. Okay, and to take the material and use it in commercial product, clearly in my non-professional opinion, clearly violate fair use. How they thought they can get away with it, I was waiting for the beginning. As soon as they announced that they're basically trained their models on everything they can find on the web, I said, this is copyright material. And the answer was that maybe the whole enterprise now of LLMs is not commercially viable unless they could have had the deal. They could have gone to New York Times and said, we'll pay you so much, we'll give you a certain percentage of our income, whatever. They should have come up with it. The idea they can just go and harvest the material just because it is there, it just shows you how much Silicon Valley has lost its moral compass. So, well, sorry, we just can't make money otherwise, so we'll just steal your stuff. I mean, egregiously unethical, in my opinion.
We have another follow-up question related to that by Nguyen, asking, we see more and more monopolies or duopolies when it comes to technological platforms, information gateways like Google, infrastructure and scale/distribution platforms like AWS, social networks like Facebook, TikTok, hardware like Apple, and it's becoming harder to choose to work for non-big tech. How do we as individuals best navigate this system and optimize for public good?
So go and look for the web, look for Wikipedia, let's say the progressive era. So today we think the progressive is about identity politics, etc. But if you go back and you go and you say, what was the progressive era? It's early 20th century was the progressive era. And it was about economics. It was about against corruption, and it was against concentration of economic power. So already in the 19th century, the Sherman Law, the Sherman Act, was against monopolies. One of the things that happened, part of neoliberalism, was the Chicago School. The Chicago School not only, you know, as Milton Friedman, not only said market know best, but also in the belief in the efficiency of the market, they believe that even concentration of economic power is efficient. And you look now, people says, well, okay, Google is monopoly, but we don't pay for anything for Google, so what do we care? Well, the answer is that people that do care are, for example, local newspapers, where advertising income is taken away from local newspapers, and local newspapers around this country are gradually dying. And people arguing that the purpose of antitrust is not just think of the users at the end, but also to think about that economic power gives you political power. And when I became department chair, and when I came to Rice, it was about 30 years ago, I was department chair, and I thought that our system group was too small. So I convinced the department to invest more in systems. But what happened? Once the group became quite large, there was one senior person and more junior people, and the senior person told the junior people, you vote the way I tell you to vote. And what did they vote for? Let's hire more system people. And I learned directly that democracy requires a balance of power. And if somebody becomes too powerful in the democracy, then their interest is they don't want democracy anymore. And so when corporations become too powerful, it's bad for democracy. And it's a hallowed tradition in the United States, going back to more than 100, go back to Teddy Roosevelt. Trust busting, they call them. It was the railway, it was the banks, it was the oil companies. And in the last 25 years, after the last attempt to do antitrust, which was the Microsoft trial that was a disaster, even though it actually was effective. If Microsoft did not have the threat of antitrust over it, it would have bought Netscape. It would have bought Google. But after that, somehow we stopped doing antitrust, and you have Facebook see Instagram. Okay, let's buy it. It's a competition. Let's buy it. WhatsApp. Oh, it's a competition. Let's buy it. And we just have not exercised antitrust in this country. And the result, we have huge concentration of power, of economic power.
Thanks so much for your commentary there. Before we move on, I want to be mindful of your time. We do have a number of extra questions to ask if you feel all right.
Yeah, I have until the end of the hour, so long as
amazing.
People are still, yeah.
Awesome. So next question is, how do you rein in AI? Can regulation help? What is the best chance to combat its misuse? And it is asked by Nirupama of Nokia Bell Labs as well.
So I'm one of the people who think that we're worried too much about the technology and not enough about power. And this was kind of a theme that you might be hearing in my talk, okay? So, there are people who there are people who are called the doomers. The doomers are thinking they will have, that the AI may cause human extinction, maybe planetary extinction, who knows? Again, go back to the paperclip maximizer. The question is, who builds the technology? Who deploys the technology? And the answer right now is that this is all done by the people who develop the technology and deploy the technology, the corporations. So I would start worrying about not the technology per se, but who has the power to decide what will happen with this technology. There are lots of attempts now. I mean, it's kind of interesting because I wrote in 2018. In 2018, people talk about the ethics crisis in computing, and they said the solution to our problem should be ethics. And I very much, as you can see from my talk, I very much believe that ethics is applicable here. But ethics is the domain of individuals. We cannot just rely on ethics to police Google, for example. There have been attempts from inside Google for people to say, no, what we're doing is not kosher. We shouldn't do that. What happened to these people? They get pushed out. They are fired, they resign, all the whistleblowers, okay, leaving the company. The attempt of people to be ethical from within a company has proven to be utter failure. The companies are, again, they're powerful, they're driven by the profit motive. I have seen no attempt for change from inside. There was an attempt inside Microsoft fairly recently to develop a process for the responsible deployment of technology. Somebody come with a proposal, there will be some kind of a board, responsible technology board, and they will listen and they will discuss, is this responsible technology? And then ChatGPT exploded on the scene, and Microsoft just rushed to put billions of dollars into OpenAI. And in fact, what happened to OpenAI? What was the whole docudrama about OpenAI with Sam Altman? So OpenAI structured itself in a way, it was a non-profit with a for-profit subsidiary. And the idea was that the non-profit board will be able to somehow police the for-profit branch. That's why they created this trend structure. And the non-profit board thought that Sam Altman was moving too fast, and that's why he had to leave. And then the big investor rushed in, and money won. So if we want to corporations to behave better, it's going to be done by regulation. And when I started writing about regulation was 5 years ago, people told me, out of your mind, regulation is bad, regulation stifles innovation. No regulation. And I think now everybody's asking, okay, how should we regulate? How quickly? What exactly how should we regulate? You know, the White House just issue a executive order about AI regulation. There are discussion. You know, in the UK there was some international meeting, the Bletchley Park Declaration about AI. The Secretary General of the UN is now complaining about AI and corporations. We are now in a very, you know, things are very dynamic area. Things are changing, and there is a growing recognition that we cannot just let corporation do whatever they want with technology. But we have to reach agreement as a society and as also internationally how to manage that, and that's very much up in the air.
Awesome. We have another interesting question related to this from Itai asking, well, it is probably easier to distinguish harm from benefit in medicine. As mentioned in the Hippocratic Oath, it is harder to say what is good and bad when dealing with technology. AGI, as instance, or even social connections that Facebook claims to create, for example. How can the notion of ethics in the industry be taken further into practice by the young graduate student?
So I don't think that technologists can do this by themselves. So one is, it's well known, it's very hard to predict the consequence of technology. Okay, this is a, I mean, there is a phrase, it's not mine, I forget right now who said it, that the impact of the technology always takes longer than people estimate, but it's always deeper than people estimate. So we need to bring into the conversation other disciplines. You know, there is a whole field of it's called STS, Science and Technology Studies. Do we talk to these people? We rarely talk to these people. They sit usually in the history department and humanities. We don't talk to them. There are sociologists. You know, there are psychologists. Psychologists have been used. Facebook used psychologists to design a more addictive app. Okay, they have used psychologists to help them design an addictive app. So, you know, we should maybe employ science fiction writers. You know, let's instead of Black Mirror being something, imagine that Google asked Black Mirror to introduce the technology before they deploy it. They take the Black Mirror writers and ask them to imagine what can go wrong. So we haven't done it. I mean, you can look at AI, and I'm including myself as an AI researcher. What was our goal? Build artificial intelligence. How much thought has gone into thinking about the consequence of artificial intelligence? Okay, you can go back to Turing's 1950 paper, where he talks about the possibility of machine intelligence, and he writes it on the paper. Oh, there's much to be done. Let's go for it. That did he spend time thinking about what is the societal consequences? In the late 50s, 56, I think, or 57, we have the summer of AI. People come up with a proposal. Let's build AI. No thought about societal consequences. So we as a discipline have not put enough thought is we're developing technology. What are the consequences? We have just ignored it. We love technology. We develop technology. People now, so let's build AGI. What are the consequences of that? From within the discipline, you find very, very little. So I would say Nick Bostrom was trying to think about consequences, but in my opinion, it was, you know, he went all the way towards the super intelligence and pay-per-click maximization. You know, right now, about what is the danger of LLMs? Some people worry again about human extinction. I worry about imagine what kind of phishing attacks you can do. So now instead of some Nigerian email being sent to massive number of people, each recipient will get a personally tailored email. Imagine now that you take this concept of surveillance capitalism and you combine it with LLM to write very convincing phishing emails. And in fact, it doesn't take much. Go and you can already Google now and search for what is that persuasive chatbots. People are already doing research how to make chatbot persuasives. And to pretend that this is done for social good, for public good, they said, okay, how do we create a chatbot that will be able to convince you to exercise more? I'm sure there is a huge market for that versus a chatbot will convince you to buy more or to do more or to click more. So we have not, as a discipline, spent enough time thinking about societal consequences. You can go to a conference that supposedly it's there, HCI, but it's very much on the individual level. You don't, it's human computer interface, not society computer interface. ACM has called SIGCAS, SIG on CAS, Computer Master Society. I don't forget the acronym exactly. It's a small SIG. It's never been a very large and influential SIG. So this has not been in the DNA of our discipline to think about societal consequences. So let's start by talking about it. Let's start by educating all of our students, show them case studies, discuss with them, sensitize them to these issues. I don't have right now a roadmap to some kind of a utopian society, but we have neglected the harmful effect of technology, and that's why I said we are responsible as technologists. We have been irresponsible. We have never thought about the consequences of technology. Seriously thought about the consequence of our technology. We thought technology is good, so more technology is better, and most technology is best. Very naive. I'm not including myself. I woke up about 10 years ago when I started thinking what's going to be impact of automation on the job market. And I concluded around around 2016-17 that is going to be a huge impact. And the answer is, if you look at the chart that I show you about the decline of income and jobs, you can trace a lot of it to automation. So there have been huge wave of automation in manufacturing. We don't see it because we don't have our community. We don't have exposure to this community. You live in the city. You socialize with your educated professional. You socialize with other educated professional. We don't see what happened to rural America. If you want to understand politics today, you have to go visit rural America and see what happens there. And much of it has been caused by automation. And now we have new technology, LLMs. Previous technology automated manufacturing. LLM will automate white collar jobs. I predict a huge wave of eliminating lots of white collar jobs.
Thank you. We have about 2 minutes here, but a lot of questions still to go through, so I'll do my best to address a more unrelated one here next. So Drew is asking, when do we support and do business with a country that doesn't allow personal freedoms? For example, technology business with China.
So relationship between different countries is a big issue. We have this issue, in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine in a very, very brutal way. And there was a question. People from Poland approached me. Should ACM continue to hold conferences in Russia? And I thought about it and I said, okay, we should not hold ACM conference in Russia, but individual Russians should be welcome to join conferences. But it's a delicate line of navigating. China we don't talk much about it, but China has very poor. It's not just the freedom of speech in China, it's what's happening with the Uyghurs in China. And this cannot be just our decision as a community. It has to be a bigger decision. My son asked me some years ago whether to go to a conference in Tibet. So we did some research. And we found out that the Dalai Lama encouraged people to go visit Tibet to see what's going on. But we are living in a difficult world, different countries, different ethical standards. Nobody promised that it's going to be easy. China, I think, is a dilemma. Should we, I don't approve of what China is doing with the Uyghur. Should we boycott China? I think boycotts question require lots of discussion. There has to be kind of wide agreement. There was one case that was such a boycott was applied, and this was against the apartheid regime in South Africa. But a very broad international agreement to do that. I don't see yet such international agreement to boycott China, for example. So, I mean, there are people who knows about this better than me. I'm not an expert on these kind of issues, but I would say is that, individually you can make your own decision. But for example, should ACM decide to boycott China? I don't think we are ready for that. I think this requires a much broader societal agreement in the West, but it's relating with China. Part of the hope was, we had a hope that maybe was naive. The West hoped that if it engages with China, then China will gradually open and liberalize. Now it's not so clear that this has been a successful strategy.
On that note, it is past the hour. To Rabah, to Dr. Vardi, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We really, really appreciate it. Extremely insightful presentation. Can we get a virtual round of applause for Dr. Vardi, everyone? Let's do it. Come on, guys. All right. So I'll be following up with you shortly, Dr. Vardi, to inquire where we can send you our Georgia Tech speaker-themed gifts for our deep appreciation for your time and your willingness to speak to us. And then thanks as well to everyone in our audience for your amazing questions and attendance. We look forward to seeing everyone next week for Dr. Leslie Lamport.
Very good. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and thank you again, Dr. Vardi.
Okay. Litraot, Axel.
Litraot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.